Hi guys, in this tutorial we are going to see how to secure REST API using basic authentication and authorization. So as we all know, like providing security to API is the key component of application. So let's develop a microservice and then we'll implement the security for our REST API using Spring Boot and Spring Security. So let's create a Spring Boot application, create a Spring Starter project, then change the artifact name here, Spring Basic Security, change here Spring Security example, change the package security. Okay, now click the next, add the required dependency. I am adding web, adding dev tools, and add here the security core. Anything else? Let's import it. Application imported successfully. Okay, so first let's use the Spring Boot provided default security mechanism. Then we will implement our customized security based on role, based on URL. So first use the Spring Boot provided security default security login. Okay, to enable security, first add enable web security annotation. Okay, so now write a REST resource. So let me write a class controller. So let's create a package first. Controller, create a controller class, REST controller, or you can change the name it to application controller. Any name we can mention here. Annotate at the REST controller. Now write a endpoint, public string, something like greeting, Spring Security example. Annotate here at the get mapping. Okay, add the URL something like get message. Here mention the root URL at the request mapping. Specify some URL like rest/auth. Okay, so to use Spring Boot default security, we need to mention the username and password in application.properties file. So spring.security.username, something like mention Java Techie, then mention the password spring.security.password, password pss wrd. Okay, now let's run our application. can check here our endpoint mapped. Okay, let's hit that URL, go to the browser, localhost 1 extra slash append. Let's remove it. We are getting the cost like default login form provided by the Spring Boot. So add the URL Java Techie and the password is password. Okay, now the method got executed. After authenticated the username and password, it got executed. Okay, but there is a problem in this approach. Suppose if you are using it for local testing purpose, then we can specify this kind of like username and password in properties file, and we can check. Suppose you want to implement in your application based on URL. Suppose you want specific URL, you want to apply the security, or some specific method you want to apply the security. So it can't be possible by using this one default mechanism. Or whenever you need something like role based security, like few of my API can be accessed by admin or can access by the user, so role based security also we can't mention in this properties file. Okay, so now how we can do the role based security and URL based security, let's check that. Let me comment these two. Okay, let me stop the server. So let's write our customized security config class. So for that, create a package called config, then we will write our custom configuration. Create a package config, then write our class Spring security config, and annotate this one @configuration. Okay, and extends this class from web security configuration adapter. Okay, and in that there will be few of configure method, that is overloaded method. Let me show you. You can check here configure method taking parameter authentication, manager builder, HTTP security and web security. Okay, so let me override the first one. Let's remove this. So write here authentication dot in memory authentication. Here you can check authentication event publisher, authentication provider, through which you can connect our database also. But in this example I am going to use the basic authentication, so I am using in memory authentication. Okay, dot specify the username, specify like Java Techie, then the password, then specify the role of that user. Let's mention it as admin. Okay, now write a method where we will mention the cross origin, in the sense in which are the method we want to implement the security. So let's override one more configure method. Okay, so here write first, let me disable the CSRF token, http.csrf.disable. Okay, now specify the method where you want to implement the security, http.authorized request dot any request. I want to implement here every request. For every request I want to implement the security, fully authenticated and here we want to implement the HTTP basic. Okay, so now as we are using here Spring 2.0, so it's expecting the password in bytecrypt, like the encoded format, encrypted format. So let's add some no password output, some class is there. So initialize that bin, let me zoom it, public static, some class name like no output password encoder or something, is no output password encoder, then password encoder, then return this no output. This is deprecated method, call the get instance method. Okay, and typecast it, annotate it at the rate bin. Okay, so here we can use that what is that class be crypted, that we can use here, but in this case we are not using any role based authentication. So to ignore that, I added just this deprecated class so that it will not expect the password in encrypted format. So now let's run our application. Meanwhile, let me open a new browser. You can check here, this is the token generated by Spring Boot. Okay, if you are not configuring any username or password, you can use this password as a password, this token as a password, and you can pass username as a user. Okay, so now let's hit our URL. We are getting the pop-up here, login form, give the username Java Techie, password is PASSWORD. We are able to access the method. So here you can mark in this method, I mention here authorized any request which is coming to my application, that is the basic authentication. Like for each request I want to implement security, so that's why I write assume I have one more controller, and in this application controller only I want to implement the security. For other controller I don't want to implement the security. So for that case, how we can do? So in that case we can do using the URL based security pattern. So let me create one more controller so that I will show you. Let me stop the server. Okay, let's create it first. Something like no authentication controller. Okay, annotate here at the rest controller, write a method public string say hi, okay, specify the URL here, and specify the root URL also, request mapping rest, not rest, no auth rest. Okay, so In this case, suppose I have bunch of controller, I want to implement a security in specific controller method, not for all the controller, not for all the method. Okay, so in that case what we can do, let me stop the server, we can do using our URL based security. So let me comment this. So mention here, this one we wrote security for all API. Okay, now we are going to write security based on URL. Okay, so let me zoom it. So here, instead of any request, we want to implement security for specific request. So specify the URL pattern for which you want to implement the security. I want the URL starts from REST, for that only I want to implement the security. So starts from REST and this one. Okay, any method in this URL where REST happened, all the method I want to implement the security. So for that, write the regular expression like star star slash rest. Okay, we are getting, after rest we are getting some URL. So rest slash start, then add here. Okay, now it will implement security only for the URL which starts from rest. Okay, so let's run our application, run as Java application. So let's create a new browser. Okay, our application is up. Now let's test. Copy the URL here. You can check both the controller URL mapped here. REST authentication get message, no authentication, REST say hi. Okay, so you can check for this, it will not ask for the credential. So for that we didn't implement the security. Let's check, it's executing the method directly without asking any security. So now let's test the other one, REST slash authentication slash get message. What is the URL? Maybe I did something on this pattern. Let me check. Slash rest slash star star authorized requests and matches. So let's write slash rest. As you added DevTools, it will take care to auto restart. Now let's test it. It's not coming. Now let's slash rest slash double star cause. In this controller slash, then after that also we are appending the URL. So let me copy this one, create a new browser, then the closing existing one, it's coming the pop-up now. Okay, let's try Java Techie. It's authenticated and we are getting the Spring Security example. But for this one, the other URL we mention in the controller 2, for this it's not asking any security. Okay, so this is the way we can implement the URL based security. Okay, and now suppose I want this method, this get message method can be accessed by the user who is admin, not by the user. Okay, so that is the role based security. So how we can implement role based security? So let's configure something for that. Let me comment this. Okay, here comment security based on role. Okay, so let me stop the server. We created here only one user, that is the admin. Let me create one more user whose role is user, something like Basant, password 2 and role is user. Okay, so here HTTP authorized request for this URL having the role is admin, then for any request I want fully authenticated with our HTTP basic authentication. Okay, so here in this the request is coming to this particular controller where the URL starts from /rest will always authorized by or accessed by admin user only, not by the user object, not by the a user whose role is user. Okay, so let me restart the application, run a Java application. Okay, now let's hit the URL. First we will check with the user credential using this Basant and password 2. So let's see whether it is allow us or not. Localhost, I don't know why it's coming. Let me open the new browser. Localhost, it's asking for like the login form. It's like in browser, if I will not close that, I think it's the in cookies or somewhere it's storing the credentials, so that's why we are getting the issue, I guess. Okay, let me try Basant, then the password is, what is the password? Password 2. We are getting the forbidden error 403 as this user is not authorized to access this URL. Okay, cause Basant is a role, it's user role, so it can be accessed by only admin. So let me close the browser. I don't know why I'm getting issue on this browser. Let me reopen it. Okay, now provide the user whose role is admin. What is the password? You can check the response we got. As this user is admin, we get the response. For user, it is not able to authorized. Okay, so in this API we learned how to implement security for all the endpoint. Then we learn how to implement security based on the specific URL. Then the next one we learn how to implement security based on the specific role. Okay, so these are the three concepts, these are the basic concept we need to know. So in my next video I will upload a role based security using by connecting the database. So we'll use that Spring Boot and Spring Data API, and I will validate the username and password based on the role. Okay, that's it about this particular video. If anyone have any concern or doubt, you can add a comment, and thanks for watching this video.